Hello everyone. We have a game with the black pieces on our speed run against Hulidoshi, rated 870. We're going to get a Caro-Kann on the board of sorts. He takes our pawn in the center. We're forced to take back. And we do not get a Caro-Kann. He goes d3. A more passive setup, blocking his own bishop. We can't put two pawns in the center, but we can prepare it. Let's bring this knight out because it prepares this, as opposed to the other knight, which does not prepare it. So he stops it by developing a piece. That makes sense. So let's re-prepare it by developing our bishop, pinning the knight so we can play it. So he defends the knight, but we can take the knight, and the knight controls the dark square, but the bishop controls the light square. So the bishop does not stop us from playing e5. So let's take the knight, which was part of our plan, to at least pin it. He has to take back. It makes sense with the bishop, putting pressure on our center. And this pawn is going to be a little tender because we're not going to play e6 with a solid structure. We're going to play e5, making the d5 pawn a little looser. So he retreats his bishop. And now we can continue developing. We can maybe even play f5 with a stronger center and put the knight behind it. I kind of like that because it threatens to push and kick the bishop. So if we go here, is there any real drawback? I mean, developing the knight is definitely awesome and safe. But I'm going to go for it, f5, and put the knight behind the pawns. Okay, so he develops his queen and attacks the pawn, which is defended. So now I'm just going to bring out my knight casually. Okay, he attacks the center, but he spent 2 tempi to get the pawn here. And all this does is encourage us to push and kick his bishop with a stronger center. The pawn is hanging and our position is winning. Whoa. Oh, I guess it was trapped. That wasn't even my plan, but he did it himself. And the best thing, I mean, the good thing about having the f5 pawn is now we can use it, right, to take back. We still have 2 pawns in the center. When we castle, we'll have an open f file for the rook. This is still hanging, which is bad for him. So instead of developing a new piece, he moves the same piece twice. Not really much of an improvement, so I don't like it. There's free stuff hanging. There, a downside. He can't even check us because the knight covers that square, which there's a good chance he'll blunder into, but I mean, you can easily develop a bishop. You can develop your queen. Or you can take this pawn. Let's just take the pawn. It comes with some pressure on his position. We can always defend it when he attacks it with his queen. And so I might as well just take the free stuff. And now my pieces are just going to flow freely. So he moves his queen to a place that does attack the knight and defend this pawn. So I'm going to get out of this pin and develop my queen and protect the knight and attack the pawn and even be able to recapture this way, still defending. And so that move was just super awesome geometrically. Okay, so he attacks the knight with a pawn, saying, hey, if you move the knight, this is hanging behind it. But if he wastes time grabbing pawns while he's down a piece, it could end very badly for him. But what do we want to do? I guess we should just move the knight. I'm looking for fancy moves, but there's no reason to get fancy, I guess. So where should we move it? Probably back because it has this outpost to look at in the future. So let's just go back. He can take this pawn if he likes. He's down a full piece. Okay. So how do we make the most out of this? I mean, you can get a tempo with the rook, but after you give him this pawn, I mean, you do have a really nice lead in development. You just go here and castle, but I don't even want to do that. I'm up a piece. I kind of want to bully him, so I'm going to move the same piece twice and bully him. I'm not going to give him the pawn. A queen trade is obviously good for me up a bishop, so I'm kind of bullying him, saying get out of my position. I'm protecting my pawn, and then I can do what I want. He takes the queen, but now he's just down a clean piece, so really hard to play. So he castles. He'll probably attack this pawn and get 2 pawns, but a piece is still a piece. So what's a developing move? Long castle looks good. Stops his knight from coming out. So let's do that. And okay, it doesn't stop his knight from coming out. My mistake. So let's take that. What I was going to say is we give him this pawn and we go on the offensive, right? We take everything in his position and we just mow him down. So let's go through the game. We get the start of a Caro-Kann, but then after he takes and we take, he doesn't transpose. He doesn't play d4, he plays d3. So not a Caro-Kann. Okay, 95%. Another sweet, perfect game. One in accuracy. So we bring a knight out towards the center, and you notice how I didn't make the automatic king's knight, which probably most of you would have played first, because this doesn't actually do anything. I mean, it's a good developing move, but this is a good developing move that actually threatens to play e5 next. So we use our brain, and we play this first. He stops it. Again, I don't just bring out my knight. I'm making moves that are with an idea behind it. The idea is to eventually play e5. So which developing move helps that? This one, restricting the knight that's controlling it. And now the bishop, although they say bishops and knights are equal and stuff, they're not equal. They're different. They're different pieces and they do different things. So one isn't exchangeable for the other. They're completely different pieces. It's hard to explain what I'm trying to say, but I'm saying they're both unique, and so you can't just trade one for the other and say it's an equal thing. Like in this case, the knight is clearly covering dark squares, and you can say they're both worth 3. But once I take the knight, the bishop isn't covering the dark squares. So it doesn't matter if you say it's worth 3 or not. They do different things. So anyway, I play this in the center. And now my position is beautiful. F5. Engine does not give a huge blunder sign or a mistake, which I like. Total zeros across the board. But who would you rather be here? I mean, who would pick white in this position? That's crazy. And then immediately it goes from zeros to minus 1.1 from a natural move. But it's just a bad move. So we just continue our development towards the center. We can kick this bishop at any time, right? So push with tempo. And then boom, immediately it goes to -4 because he trapped his own bishop. And so he just takes it and the game's over. -4.6. Our position is golden. He wastes time instead of developing a new piece. And we just take free stuff, -5. He moves the queen. And we develop a piece. It's funny they say this is our one in accuracy at -4 because this move does so many things. It looks so good. But yeah, he takes here, and we take here. And I guess the reason they're saying that was because of this line, but it's still -5. So I mean, it's okay. He takes the pawn, and now we offer the queen trade. which makes a lot of sense because our position is completely winning. So a lot of you may think like, oh, I don't want a queen trade here because if he wins this pawn in the center, he'll have 2 pawns for the piece, and I only have 4 pawns left, and it's going to be a draw. This is a draw. But it's -5. This is not a draw. It's not even close to a draw because you still have an extra piece, and you're going to be able to use that piece to win 2, 3 more of his pawns while maintaining all of yours. So, which should lead to a completely winning endgame. So here he castles, and we castle. Why do we castle instead of just developing the bishop, which a lot of you would automatically do? Because we don't just want to make random moves. We want to make moves with ideas behind them. And so yes, we want to develop both this and castling, but this restricts the knight, which he obviously wants to do next to connect the rooks and attack the pawn. So you have to use your head. But he does it anyway, just losing. So you can see how we're really determining the nuances based on the opponent's stuff. Hopefully this helps you play the Caro-Kann. Hopefully it helps you think in chess. Tell me what openings you play. Maybe they'll apply to the next speedrun in the 100 episodes. So good luck in your chess, and goodbye.